So excited I get to sit down with you, Rebecca. Welcome.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Good, so good. And thank you for having me. I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, thank you so much. You're the president of the Colorado Fertility
Ah.
Advocates, and you're new in that position, right? Just
Yes,
since.
I was nominated this year. So for 2024, I was nominated back in October to take over, and I have some big shoes to fill because
Oh
Dr. Roca was the chair before me.
my gosh, you're going to do great. I'm so excited
You.
connected and to have this conversation about your fertility journey and your passions. And it
Yeah,
was a long journey that you went through, right? 9 years.
very. Yeah.
Like
9 years, almost a
9 years of
decade.
these struggles. Oh gosh.
It's so wild. It's so wild.
Where would you like to begin? Was IVF? I know you have a history of PCOS and you've told me endometriosis and
Yeah.
adenomyosis. Did they know all of that in the beginning, or kind of like were
No.
you trying for a bit and then were led to a fertility specialist? Where would you like
Yeah. I
to
wish I had one of those magic crystal balls 9 years ago so I could just speed things up
right?
because
Don't we all?
it's like, I just had my second son and I'm 40 and it's like, I don't want to be 42 going into expanding my family. So I wish 9 years ago I had a magic crystal ball to kind of tell me,
Yeah.
what was going to happen. But it's not uncommon. I mean, I know a lot of times endometriosis, adenomyosis, and things like that go undiagnosed for so long. And still to this day, it's pretty crazy.
It's sad, isn't it? I
I
mean,
know. I
you
know.
could be suffering for years before things are detected.
Exactly. And, it's interesting because I feel like for myself in my own personal journey, I always knew I was going to struggle with fertility. And I think because my mother did.
Really? You always knew that?
Yeah. And it was just one of those things where it was like, I just had it in my gut. Like, I want to be, like, I always knew I wanted to be a mom. And I wanted to start early and, right after I was married. And that was kind of my plan. But I just had this feeling, like this little feeling that I was going to struggle. So it's interesting. My mom struggled for 9 years exactly,
Oh,
to have a baby. And their story is just so fascinating to me. So, um, finally they were just like, you know what, there was back then, gosh, in the 60s, and late 60s and 70s, when they were trying, there wasn't as much technology and advancement and medications and things that you could do now. So she went through the gamut of whatever was available for infertility and finally just said, that's it, we're going to adopt. And they went to Catholic Charities and they said, what's your youngest baby? And it was my brother. And he was 9 months old.
oh my gosh.
And they adopted him. So
Wow.
they're in court finalizing the adoption. And my mom doesn't feel well. And my dad's like, okay, we're going to go to the hospital after this. And the doctor in the hospital said, well, you're not feeling well because you're pregnant.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So she's with my brother Kevin. And then 2 years later, I came.
Wow.
Which is
Isn't
just
that how it
wild.
happens, right? It's
And
like, put your hand,
yes,
surrender, and boom.
yes. And I always kept saying that. I was like, it's just stress. I'm putting so much pressure on myself. And I just, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And I think that a lot of people do that. I think a lot of women just say, oh, I'm just putting too much stress on myself. I'm putting too much pressure. But if there's one thing that I learned, right, over these last 9 years is just don't wait to get some of that preliminary work out of the way, right? Whether it's the semen analysis to just figure out, hey, is my husband good or is my partner good? Are we good with what we're, there? Maybe it's like a post-coital exam, right? To see if there's something going on with your cervical mucus, because that
Mhm.
could be an issue too. Maybe it's a thyroid issue. All of those little things can be simple blood tests or simple exams that I just feel like really would have helped me in this process to speed it along a little bit so that we weren't sitting here year after year saying, okay, you
Mm.
know, it wasn't this, it wasn't that, I'm not stressed or whatever the situation was, and then still not getting pregnant year over year.
Yeah, such good advice. I mean, the early testing is so key. it's, you're right, just a
Really.
simple blood test could give
Mhm.
you so many clues and
Yeah.
information.
Yeah.
So where was the beginning of your kind of fertility journey? Were you trying for a while and then were led to a reproductive endocrinologist or?
Yeah, we did. We were with my OB for a while, and
Mhm.
they were just saying, let's do some IUIs, just something that's more cost effective, something that we can try, a few times we did some postcoital exams and things like that. And then finally I just said, I know my body, right? And I feel like I have been struggling with endometriosis since I was 13, but I've never been diagnosed with it. So we had the surgery, and my OB said yes. I mean, he opens me up and said, "You were covered." I mean, in it.
So they
Um,
detected it before the IUIs or after?
they did it after the IUIs.
Right? It was like, why can't we find these things out before?
I know, I
Fertility.
know. And it just sometimes it takes that advocating for yourself,
Mhm.
like I trust my doctors. I put all of my trust into my doctors, but you know your body, I think, better than anybody else. And that was something that, like, for a long time, I just wasn't empowered to advocate for myself. I just kept saying, I don't know, and I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to self diagnose. But at one point, I just was like, I really want to know if this is something that I have. So, along those lines, with the endometriosis, I was diagnosed with PCOS
Mhm.
and adenomyosis too.
Mhm.
So when you look at the combination of all three of those, and even the history of my mother, struggling to get pregnant, it made sense, right? It made sense that this was probably going to be a little bit of a struggle. And I'm not saying that if you have those, you can't get pregnant, but it just makes it a little harder, right? So I wish I knew that sooner. I just do. I wish I knew that sooner. So I could have said, okay, we're going with IVF, right? Let's try to skip all this
Mhm.
and get down to it.
So a couple IUIs is what you did?
Yeah, we did a couple IUIs. Yep.
And then they're like, and then everything was detected, it sounds like, and then
Uh,
leading you to IVF? Is that
yep.
kind of
And then leading me to IVF, and actually, Dr. Christina Yanetsos, she actually was she's just a dear friend of mine. We've been friends for a while, and I know that she shared her fertility story. Um,
Mhm.
she was like, "Hey, when you're ready, I've got an amazing group of doctors and team of fertility specialists that I love and I can recommend, and these people here and there." And I was like, "Okay, I'll reach out when we're ready." And I think we wanted to explore everything. I mean, when you look at the significant financial cost, right?
Mhm.
You're like, this is a risk. It's a risk because there's no guarantee on any of it.
Right.
So we looked at adoption. We looked at, IVF. We looked at surrogacy. We looked at a whole bunch of different things just to say, hey, what's going to be kind of the option that felt the best for us, but maybe that gave us, like, I don't know, less risk, or
Mhm.
just higher odds. And after doing all that research, we decided that we were going to go ahead and try IVF at least once and see what happened. So
Yeah.
we ended up going down that path. But it's hard and it's frustrating going through that journey to figure out, like, if that's what you want to do, because you go to so many doctors, right? And you go to so many specialists. And a lot of the time, and this was for me personally, they said, yeah, we can't figure out what's wrong. And
Mhm.
you're like,
Mhm.
I kind of wish there was something. Is that, like, weird? It sounds so weird, but I've talked to other fertility patients too that say, oh, I wish that they found something every time I went in, because then it gave me
Mhm.
something to go off of, right? It was almost like, I wish I knew that there was something wrong, that then I could go and try to fix or try to overcome. And after every appointment, it was like, we just don't know, where you're undiagnosed, you have undiagnosed infertility. And it's like, wow, okay, and I'm supposed to just sit here with that, and I'm supposed to be okay with that. um that's hard. So when you start to find out that you have some issues and some things are going on, they always say this may not mean or be the reasoning behind why you're not getting pregnant, but
Mhm.
it could. And then you're just like, okay, let's just go ahead and try IVF and let's see how successful we can be there. So that was kind of the journey that led us to the amazing team of doctors and, fertility specialists that are out there in Colorado, because they're all just so amazing. I know that you've met a bunch of them, and gosh,
We're
they're
lucky in
all
Colorado. We have some of the best, don't we?
some of the best. Absolutely. Some of the best. I do agree with that.
So
Um,
during the time of COVID, when you were starting this process, I'm
yes.
sure
The perfect timing,
throw
right?
another thing in there.
Oh my gosh, it was so crazy. I did my egg retrieval right at the end of January. We sent our embryos for testing out in California, and I believe we got like the results, how many embryos were good, the sex, the gender of them, all of that, right at the beginning of March. And we were setting up our transfer. And then I got the call from the doctor saying, "We are so sorry,
Like we're
but
shutting down. What did they say?
shutting down. There's just nothing that we can do." And I just am sitting there like, wait. I just went through all of this. And you're gonna tell me we're shutting down?
And
I was
well, so yeah, let's talk about that. So for those who don't know, I mean, there were hospitals were staying open for necessary, what's the term they used? Important necessary appointment. I mean, but there was a gray line with fertility clinics
yeah,
and what's necessary and what's not. And so you had embryos, right? You had embryos that they
frozen though.
yes, frozen.
Yes.
Was
And I
that the
think
plan to have a frozen transfer, or were you talking
it
about
was because we wanted to get them tested. And I think that that was something personally we chose just because of our age.
mm,
We wanted to have them tested. And so frozen. And like you said, if you have someone that's doing a fresh transfer, yes, obviously that takes priority. I see that. So I
mhm.
wasn't upset at all with my doctors. I totally understood. I mean, personally bummed because you're just waiting and time's ticking. So personally, I was bummed. But you know what? I'm just that person that believes everything happens for a reason. I have to. It's part of me trying to stay positive throughout life.
Yeah.
What we decided to do, my doctor said, you know what? Now that we have some time, let's address some other issues. And I went into an induced menopause, and I
Mm.
was in that for about 3 months, and the idea was, let's thicken your lining so
Mm.
that we have better chances of the eggs sticking. And I was like, "Yeah, I got nothing better to do." So
Inducing menopause. Okay. I haven't heard
I
that one.
went through menopause.
Huh.
And it was rough because menopause is not fun. I mean, everybody that goes through that physically and that change knows that it's not fun. I mean, there's some really awful side effects. But
Mhm.
I knew, that this was only going to increase my chances. It was only going to increase my odds of when we finally did that transfer, would it work? And it did.
And you
It
had
did.
6 embryos, is that right?
Yeah. Hmm.
On your first egg retrieval, you got 6 were they and they were healthy? 6
Yes, they were
healthy
healthy.
embryos. That's amazing.
Yep, 6 healthy embryos. I know. I was so excited about those odds. That was so great.
Oh, okay, so your first transfer you said worked?
Yeah, so my first transfer worked, and it was, gosh, what did they do? It was July of 2020. So throughout that whole time that I was in menopause, we didn't know when we were going to do this transfer. It wasn't like, hey, let's gear up. It was literally like when they got the green light, I was going to get a call from my doctor to go. So during all of that waiting, it was like, okay, let's do the healthy things. Let's take the prebiotics, probiotics, prenatals, all of the things to just make sure that we're ready.
Mhm.
And it's just that limbo waiting game. I actually had adopted a third dog during that
Oh my gosh.
because
Wow.
we were like, I was in that, I was a little obviously depressed, I wanted to have a baby so bad. And I just felt like the odds kept stacking up against us. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know when this is going to happen. Like, we've tried for so long, and now the universe is throwing a pandemic at us. And it was crazy. So I told my husband, I was like, you need to get me another dog. I need to fill this void.
Oh my gosh. Well, we love our fur babies. I know I had one
Oh, I
many
loved it.
for a
Love
while
my
too
fur baby.
before.
And then they called me and said, we're going to schedule you for end of July. And I was like, you're kidding me. And they said, no. They were like, you're coming in. And I was like, okay. And my husband couldn't be there with me, which was very sad.
Yeah.
Um, And it's a little bit of the ongoing joke that my husband wasn't even in the room when I got pregnant, but
I heard that one before too.
it's those little things that try to, to lighten the situation, to lighten
It's
the mood
going to
around
tell for
it.
sure for years to come.
Oh, it's horrible. He's like waiting in the car and I'm upstairs, like,
That's so sad. That just brings me back to how many people experienced that during COVID. A lot of people were alone during
I
procedures.
know. I know.
And
And
ultrasounds,
then
pregnancy,
yeah, yeah.
such a
And then the pregnancy moving into it, how many ultrasounds he missed and the moments that, you just want to bond over,
yeah.
right? Those moments that you look forward to. I'll tell you, I always had this vision in my mind, of being that pregnant mom, pushing the shopping cart, and people stopping you and saying, "Oh, you're glowing," and getting to go to the grocery store or the
Oh,
construction, like the Home Depot or something, and parking in the spot that says "expecting mothers."
mm.
Lisa,
You
we
didn't
didn't go anywhere.
go anywhere. True. We don't want to be around anybody, right? Nobody would want
Uh,
to.
Nobody
Oh
saw
my
me pregnant. I walked to the mailbox and
God.
back, hoping that somebody would drive by and I could say hi.
Wow, I totally get that. So you're going through some of your own grieving, and did your husband feel some of that grief too with things he missed out on a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. It was like, "Oh, I'm gonna FaceTime you in on this ultrasound. I'll FaceTime you in on this appointment," and he was just so excited that we
Mm,
tried not to kill the excitement with the fact that, he couldn't be in the room for it, but it was a bummer. There was no huge gender reveal party. There was no baby shower,
mm,
that could be in person. There weren't those milestone moments, I guess you can say, that, like, you share. But looking back on it, I give it all up again. Give
yeah.
it all up again to have it the way that it was. It was just supposed to be that way. It was supposed
Mhm.
to be that way. I keep saying things happen for a reason, and I'm, all over the place and I'm kind of nuts. And I think that being pregnant during COVID made me sick. It made me just
Yeah.
stay and like not go do 1,000 things for other people and take on more than I could handle. It forced me to be at home, to focus on myself, to prioritize my health. And I just try to stay thankful for all those little tiny blessings, right? That happen.
I love that you're sharing some of the gifts of COVID. And I too, I see it as there were a lot of silver linings through it all. And I love
Yeah.
your mindset, like how you approached it all.
Have to think that way, right? I can't think that it was, um, you know,
Mm.
against me for a reason. I just try to think that
Yeah, what else can we do? We learned
it
to
was
adapt and we
helping
learned to
me.
roll with the punches, and I'm sure it helped you in your parenting, right? So your
Oh my
littlest one is
God.
how old now? Or I should say your oldest.
Yes, he is going to be 3 in April. So he's 2, but he'll be 3 in April. And oh, he's so wild. It's such a miracle. Such a
Yeah.
miracle. I just love that I'm at this point and I think like I can look back and say like it was a wild ride going through IVF and the whole process, but that it was so worth it for me.
Mhm.
And that I chose to do it again. I chose
You
to do
share
it
about
again.
that? Share about that.
Yeah. Um, so knowing that the process takes so long, it was January of 2022, which means my son was not very old at that point. He wasn't even 1.
Mm.
And I was scheduling appointments with my fertility doctor, and my husband's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Wait, wait.
He wasn't even aware.
I know that we want to go for number 2, but like our son's not even 1." And I was like, "But
Oh,
you
okay.
know
You're
how
right.
long this process takes."
Mhm.
And just in my mindset was it's so risky because you never know if the transfer is going to work, and then you start your whole cycle over again with your medications and everything, and you just don't know.
Mhm.
So I got him on board and he was like, "Okay." He was like, "Let's do this." So when I talked to my fertility doctor, he said, "I don't want to mess with the recipe that we created. So we're
Mm.
going to do the menopause again." I was like,
Go
"Oh."
into that. What exactly do they do?
So you do an injection. I think it's like a Lupron injection.
Okay.
and it basically kind of shuts down your system for a good 3 months. So,
Okay.
you're not ovulating, you're not shedding, but you feel the hot flashes, you
Oh,
feel the joint pain, right? You have the hair loss. So just all the things, all the
I'm
fun things.
describing. Oh my gosh.
At least
Gotta
you
keep
know
the
what
light
to
in this.
expect
Gotta
in the
laugh,
future.
gotta laugh.
Yeah, you do. You gotta laugh through it. I mean, that's what I do. Is it miserable during it? Sure. But I knew that every single step of this was to give me the greatest gift.
Mm.
Every injection you go through, right? Every patch, every oral med, every horrible. I was listening to one of your podcasts. I think her name was Rebecca as well. She founded the Warriors.
Oh, yeah.
She said
Yes,
like
sir.
archaic torture devices, right? That
Yeah.
they put you through. It was a
Yeah.
really great description of some of the things that you go through.
Mhm.
And you just remember and you hold on to that hope that
Mhm.
you end up with the outcome that you're looking for. So yeah, we went through menopause again. It sucked. It was horrible. I didn't come out of it this time. Usually after a couple months you come out of it, and I didn't.
Mm.
And I was a little nervous that that was going to mean something. Was it not going to work? That fear was there, but we just moved ahead and went ahead with the transfer anyway, and was successful again.
That was successful. Okay.
Yes.
Mhm.
So he's 8 months old. He was born in May of last year.
It's amazing. Okay, so you still
Yeah,
have frozen embryos, and that's
do.
personal. I want to ask you what you're doing with them. Um,
Yes, I would love to keep expanding my family.
you
I'm not going to carry again. I will look at surrogacy.
okay?
Yeah, these two did a number on my body, but we'll see. We'll see if we expand our
Oh
family. I would love to. I would love to. I want all the babies.
my God, yes, that's wonderful. Oh my gosh, thank you
I
for
want
breaking that
all
down
the
and
babies.
sharing what you've gone through. I mean,
Oh, of course.
there's so much, right, through this process. How do we handle the waiting? Who?
And where were you? Where were you? Lisa, I needed you during all of that. Where were you?
Oh, thank
It's I love the fact that we got to connect, because I
you.
feel like, and I'll talk more about CFA and what Colorado Fertility Advocates does, but having resources like you, man, I'm so disappointed that I didn't find someone like you, or maybe there wasn't when I was going through it. I mean, maybe there weren't really a ton of resources of people to talk through and to have coach and help you. It's an
Mhm.
extremely isolating experience, right?
Very much.
Every one of my friends were on their third kid
Mhm.
before I was even starting IVF. And I'm like, what is happening? So you go through this like isolating experience, and it's very personal, but then at the same time your family and your friends are invested because they want you, to have this family, but
Mhm.
it's just unorthodox. It's different than and what anyone else expects. And I could say, "Oh, I went and had an HSG done, or I went and had this, fluid ultrasound done."
Mhm.
Nobody knows what that means. Nobody knows what that entails, what that does, what you went through. "Oh, I have to take these injections, 2, 4, 6 a day." It does, until you actually go through it, or you're like with somebody that's going through it, your partner. It's really hard
Mhm.
to try to, I don't even know, like emotionally wrap your mind around, physically wrap your mind around. And then, oh, by the way, you have to get up every day and go to work and just kind of push all that aside. And you still have to be maybe a mother, to other children, or maybe, a wife and a sister, a daughter, all the things, a community member. And then, just compartmentalize it.
Mhm.
And it's hard. And I just wish I had somebody like you to help walk me and guide me through it. I'm so happy um, that there's now a group, or some people that are out there that are starting to do this.
Thank you so much. Yes, I mean, you're right. I didn't see that support when I was going through IVF too. This was in fall of 2015, we started treatment, all of 2016 surgeries, had our daughter in 2017. And I started this like around 2019, kind of getting more into it 2020. And yeah, you're right. There's no one to really walk alongside you in the emotional mindset space. And our doctors are incredible and wonderful, and they handle the science and the medical side. And let's leave
Right.
it to them.
Yeah.
They don't really have the capacity to support all of the mental, emotional
Yeah.
challenges that we face. So we get it. And this is why I created it, because it's so needed. Only those of us who walk this path truly get it,
Yep.
truly understand. And I know you're such a passionate fertility advocate. And I mean, obviously, as the president of this organization,
Yeah.
Colorado, like, how did, what made you want to become a part of this and step into this role?
It was that fact of feeling alone. So when I heard about Colorado Fertility Advocates and I knew the people on the board and what they were doing, I just started going to some of their events because I thought, hey, even though I'm in the middle of my journey, I still know that I can take a lot away from being with a group of like-minded people, so people that went through the same experiences, doctors, even fertility and surrogacy and family lawyers, hearing kind of all sides of what people go through and their stories. I just wanted to do that personally, selfishly. But then the more and more I became involved, I said, I feel like I could do more for the community in Colorado, and not even just Colorado, nationwide. And I became a board member.
Mhm.
And that whole last year of 2023, I dedicated my time specifically to promoting our events, really helping, get the word out as to what are our webinars that are coming up? What are some things that are out in our community now that I could post on our web page, on our social media pages to help others, IVF groups on Facebook. I would go on there and I would start posting, hey, we have this free webinar coming up, around mind, body, spirit with IVF, or we have a Mythbusters, event coming up where we're going to have a panel of doctors talking about some really fun, myths that they're going to bust in. And it was just, that was my focus, was I really wanted to just broaden the scope and the reach of CFA. And in doing that, I networked and met so many amazing people. And then when it came time for the end of the year, when you throw your name in the hat, for nomination, I was like, I want to do this. I want to see where CFA can go in 2024. I want to carry on all of the awesome, awesome work that's been done over the past couple of years and add on to that too, and put a little bit of my stamp with this team on it, and then pass the torch, when the time comes. So I was really excited for it, and of course they embraced me with open arms and said, yes, we want you to do it. And it's intimidating, though. I will tell you, it's intimidating. If you look at the website, at the board, it's all doctors, endocrinologists, fertility specialists, lawyers. I was like, okay, I'm a mama. I have the patient experience. I have learning and development and training experience. That's what I do professionally. So how am I going to add value as chair? And I said, I can do it. I know I'm not a doctor. I know that I'm not a lawyer, but I still can add value from a patient perspective,
Mhm.
to be able to work with that team and say, hey, let's do this together, not just me. Let's do this together. Take CFA to new heights in 2024 and see where we go from there. And I'm super excited because we've got some awesome things on the docket for this year too.
For anyone listening, especially those in Colorado, check out this incredible organization. It's
Yes.
coloradofertilityadvocates.org, and it's a
Mhm.
nonprofit, and you can be listed. I'm one of
Yeah.
the professionals listed on your website, and I want to be going to more. I mean, I sometimes don't always hear about them, so I want to learn more of like what's coming up. So
Yes.
checking.
Yes. We're going to keep pushing that. We're going to keep spreading awareness on our social media platform and pages. And I'll even go put flyers on cars if I have to.
I think I first learned about it through the Colorado Walk of Hope when
Yes.
that started back in
Yeah.
2016, maybe.
Yeah. Mhm. Mhm. trying to get that back up and running.
Yeah. And then in 2020, Colorado passed the Colorado Building Families Act,
Right.
which
Right.
insurance plans under Colorado law to provide coverage for fertility diagnoses, preservation, treatment. But I know there's been some talk on like what's covered, what's not, the smaller companies based in Colorado are covering, but some of the larger ones are not. Is that my understanding?
The large are now with the
Larger are the
new
smaller.
bill. It's
Yeah.
the small, yeah, the small medium. So that's kind of the target of the new bill that's coming out now, is we're really trying to encourage those smaller organizations and companies to offer fertility coverage, to choose and select plans that will offer fertility coverage. And it depends, right? So it depends on the employer and the insurance carrier and what they build into their plans, but something, that representation to know. And I'll tell you what, it helps you as an organization too. When somebody's looking to be a part of your company, right? And they want to apply and you're looking for these good candidates and these good hires, they see that and take notice. Hey, this organization offers fertility coverage. And even if it's me that wants to expand my family or it's somebody else, to know that they care about your family, it makes that company stand out. I will say that it makes that organization stand out. So I think it's just such a win-win for us.
This is the latest, right? I mean, this is a new bill being,
Yep.
where are we at in the process? If you can
I
share.
believe I just sat through, I'll have to get some dates for you. I believe I thought it was going to be this year that we were, soon that we're going to be pushing that through. But let me get some dates for you.
I'm, oh my goodness. Well, you're talking about like using the power of your voice and advocating. And I love that, you're so passionate about helping others too, navigating this path. And I mean, the 9 years that you went through, challenges and struggles, you have a lot to share and learn for others to learn about, avoid these mistakes, or where are are there things that
No.
come to mind for you that you're like, you said that early testing
Yep.
is key.
The early testing is definitely key. It's so interesting because everybody's journey is different. I mean, we always say this about the pregnancy journey. Like everybody's pregnancy is different. You can't really compare. Everybody's IVF journey is different too. Girlfriends and friends that have called, they're like, I didn't have to take that medicine you took. I was so nervous I was going to have to take it. And I keep trying to remind them we're individuals, everything is based off of your own individual status and what's going on with you. And so what I went through isn't going to be what you go through,
Mm.
but the feeling, right? The emotion behind it, some of the physical endurance that we have to do, a lot of those are similar and it resonates amongst the community. And I just try not to be, when I share my story, I try not to be candid with it, or I try to be a little more open and not so like, well, my journey's different. So I don't really want to share because I don't want to scare you. It's, for me, it's more, hey, let's share everything about it. I want people to know the good, the bad, the ugly. I want them to see the positive and the light at the end of it, and why it's important to stay positive throughout the whole journey that you're going through. And we should be more open and candid around it. So I love being able to talk through it. I have a lot of people reach out to me and just saying, I'm thinking about starting IVF. And I don't tell them you should do it. You should do it because it's a huge undertaking, right? You have to mentally be prepared, physically be prepared, financially be prepared, amongst other things. But I always say, talk to your doctors, talk to your family, listen to podcasts and stories from others, that have, and I'm going to be sending people your way too to listen to your podcasts as a resource. And then gather as much information as you can to decide if this is the right thing for you, right? If it is the right thing for you, because it depends on the season of your life that you're in and what you have going on personally. And you always want to make sure that you have everything that you need to be successful, right? You don't want to jump into it not knowing what it's all going to entail, because it's just gonna, it could rock your world a little bit, right?
That's great advice. Would you say you were always in a pretty optimal mindset
Yeah.
through it all? I mean, like, this is natural. This is part of who you are. And I would say that's for me too. Like, I just was always expecting good things to happen and trusting that things are falling into place. And for a lot of
Yeah,
people, it's hard. It's hard to shift into that kind of mindset, but it's a choice,
100%. It's a choice. I think even before I did IVF, my husband and I were starting to prepare ourselves to maybe just always be the fun aunt and uncle, and maybe to be the dog parents, the fur, we'll have fur babies. And
Mhm.
I was okay with that too. I think that I wanted to try one last thing. And then I was going to say, okay, you know what? This just isn't in the cards for us, but we're still going to be happy and we're still going to live an amazing life and we're going to do amazing things. And I'll, love on my nieces and nephews as much as I can. So I just had to kind of come to peace with whatever outcome we were going to have and say, it's okay. We're still going to be okay. And that helped me a lot. Um, I was shocked when I, got the call, oh, you're pregnant. I'm like, yeah, right.
Is that how you react?
Oh, totally. I was like, I'll believe it when that baby comes out. And I literally, up until like the day of induction and my C-sections, was like in this almost, this isn't happening. Is this real? Is this real? Because I tried for so long that
Mhm.
you don't even believe it until I like held that baby in my arms and I was like, oh my gosh, this was real.
I
Like
want to
this
ask you,
happened.
thank you for going there. Did you celebrate your pregnancy? Like, were you in the moment? Can you take me back to that? Or was it kind of like, I just don't want to feel too good because it's so hard to believe? A lot of
Yeah.
women get in that place where it's like they kind of miss maybe some of the celebrating
Yeah.
because they're so worried or it's all going to work out, right?
And you can see that for any mama, right? I think any mama, whether it's IVF or not, I think that at a certain point, you're still just so scared that something could happen. But I do think because of how long we fought and how hard we tried, there was this disbelief for an extended period of time. There was this disbelief. Like I remember somebody being like, oh, you should put this car seat on your registry. And I was like, nope, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it until I get further along, until I know for sure, until I know like I'm in the clear, until I really start to feel him kicking, until I start like it was almost that didn't want to jinx it and I was scared. So I held on till like last minute and then really like the nesting kicks in and that's just your hormones taking over.
A lot can relate to this. So,
Yeah.
were you pretty open with people about your journey? I'm curious, or were you more private? Like, I know you're sharing now to everybody, but were you bringing along people along your journey as you're going through IVF?
You try to, but you find out real quick who supports you and who doesn't.
Yeah.
And it's sad. It's sad. Um, because you think, I didn't wake up one morning and say, you know what? I really hope that I struggle with fertility and that I lose all of my savings that I've worked so hard for and have to give it up. And I hope that, I go through some of the worst physical pain I've ever, nobody says that. Nobody asks for this. It's super unfortunate. And it is a medical diagnosis. And it's something that it happens and you work through it, but it's like you can share that with people and they'll either believe you, or they'll say you're just giving up, right? And you're now taking this short way out, or they'll come from a religious perspective and say, it's not natural.
Mm.
Um, what you're doing isn't natural and it's not right. Or they don't want to recognize you and your family.
Mm.
Um, I mean, you get it all. It's weird. It's weird, but you get it all. I mean, I've heard of mom shaming, but I didn't know there was IVF shaming. Guess there is.
Yeah. Were you doing other holistic supports along the way, or were you kind of like doing this all on your own? Like, who was a support for you, or what was a support for you?
Yeah, I mean, with the first one, it was hard because it was during COVID. So really, it was just my husband and I, and we kind of lived in this little bubble. You live in this little bubble, and I wanted to stop sharing a lot because there was a moment, and I'll share this. There was a moment where I had gotten the COVID shot. It was approved for pregnant women, And I decided that I wanted to do it because I had read articles. I had my fertility doctors send me articles and research studies that they had done on a select group. And actually, it was a bunch of nurses that they had done this on to test the COVID vaccine. And the antibodies, had gone to the baby. And it was just overall helpful and positive. And I chose for me personally to do it. And I posted a picture that had my little like sticker, and I had put it on my baby bump, and I posted it on social media, and you would not believe the backlash that I
Mhm.
received from people that I thought really, supported me and supported our journey, and it was sad. It was really sad. I'll just say that it was really sad. But I chose not to engage, right? I was like, this is my choice and this is what I want to do. And I was happy with the choice, and I was still happy with the choice and glad that I did it. And it was something that was, empowering for me to say that I wanted, I did this, and I
Just
wanted to do it for my child.
good for you for just, letting all that negativity, you weren't going to engage.
Yeah, I'm not going to engage. So I always take that road of, hey, I appreciate your opinion. I do. I appreciate your opinion. I appreciate people that have opinions. It's
Mhm.
not the same as mine. It isn't my opinion. I don't want you to force yours on me. I can appreciate yours, and we'll leave it there. Um, but it's hard because then you don't want to share, right? Then you go down oh, I don't want to post this picture, or I don't want to post this update on what's happening in my journey because of just the fear that you're going to get backlash and you're just going to get some unwarranted responses that you just, are not anticipating, I guess.
Shows how strong you are, you know?
Yeah.
And I love that you shared in this conversation earlier about, you knew you were gonna be okay no matter what, and not you kind of had this art of detachment, right? Like you
Yeah.
detached from, well, I hope it works, but if it doesn't, we're still gonna be okay. That's really key for those listening to kind of step into that energy of we're not putting this at the like top of it, like putting so much pressure on ourselves, like it has to work. You were kind of detached, and that's a good place to be.
I just didn't want it to define me completely, if that makes sense. I didn't want it to be everything that controlled my life because it was so hard as it was that I was like, no, I still want to find the joy in my husband and still find the joy in my family and in travel and, all those other things. So I tried really hard to not make it the center of our lives to where it was like I'm miserable, I'm not pregnant, I'm unhappy. I mean, who knows, if it didn't work, I could have 9 dogs right now, but it everybody has their coping mechanisms, right?
That's awesome.
But yeah, I mean, it's that void and it always sits in the back of your mind. But I think for me personally, it helps to just kind of say, you're going to be all right. It doesn't define you. It's something you want so badly, but you need to be able to sleep at night saying, I did everything I could. I explored all my options. I did what I could. I drank the teas. I ate the oat bars, all the things that say help you get pregnant. Trust me, I did them. I did it. So I
Gosh, that's
can
good
go to
advice.
sleep.
Anyone
Yeah,
listening,
and say,
do
"Hey,
the best you
I
can.
tried."
Oh my gosh, I love this conversation so much.
Ooh,
I'll include the Colorado Fertility Advocates, website
yay!
and on Instagram and
Thank
yeah,
you, because we're always looking for members. Yeah, and we're always looking, for donations help us, sponsorships help us so much because we really are trying to promote that fertility equity throughout all of Colorado. And our reach is only so far right now. And anything you can do to help volunteer your time, your energy, resources, if you find good, helpful things that you want to share with us that we could share with others, that's always so appreciated. And I don't want, my goal is I do not want another person, family going through what I went through alone and
yeah.
not knowing that there's a Lisa out there
Oh,
that can,
and the work. organization. I
Oh,
mean, there's so much support.
yeah,
There's incredible professionals that are part of this organization, and I'm honored to
yeah.
be one of them. Yes, thank you so much. This is
Of
just a
course.
conversation.
Oh,
And
absolutely. Thank you.
yes, we'll talk very soon. Thank
Okay,
you.
sounds good.